Welcome, Jason. How are you today?
Great, David. Good to see you, and happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, great. And sounds like a bit eventful sort of beginning of the year for both of us.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's everyone. I think about a month or two ago, there was very few people anyone knew who'd actually had COVID, and now it's the reverse. So yeah,
I
we've
know.
had it very close to home, and I know you guys have as well.
Yeah. I mean, certainly most people I talk to on the phone have got some relative or they've had it themselves or whatever else. But anyway, I guess that's the beginning of the year we're at.
Djokovic apparently had it twice. He liked it so much.
Oh, goodness me. So I was interested in catching up with you about a couple of things, but I guess the first area off the top was really around the marketplace. So I guess as I guess one of Australia's top recruiters in the legal sort of space and top recruitment firms in the legal space, I just want to hear what's the market look like.
Sure. So January is always a funny time because people are just starting to drib drab back. So I guess Australia Day is usually the date where we see people coming back and getting a real glean of the market. This is day two for me, and we've already had the phones running hot. There is a huge demand for talent.
Hmm.
A lot of law firms are actively recruiting. The biggest area at the moment we've had is in litigation, particularly commercial litigation, but obviously there's a lot around transactions. We've also had calls from in-house roles, but the majority so far has been in private practice. So there's definitely a candidate short market with lots of jobs and not many great candidates to fill them. So it's very much a bargaining position for lawyers who are looking to maybe move jobs this year.
And I guess I mean what is the what's the market look like from point of moving? I mean, are there many people sort of like looking a bit jiggly to want to sort of move out of what they're doing? Is this time of the year when people kind of reconsider things?
Yeah, they do. So just like people make New Year's resolutions, a lot of people have a bit of time over summer to think and to work out whether they want to go back to the job that they were in before Christmas. So generally we get a little bit of a spike around this time of the year, around Australia Day, and also June, July, just after people get pay reviews. If they're not happy, there tends to be a little bit of churn in the market. At the moment, there's just so much work going on and everyone is just so busy. So for a lot of last year, people just had head down, bum up.
Mhm.
The other thing was with the spread of some of the new variants, particularly Delta and Omicron, lawyers can be a bit risk averse. So a lot of them didn't want to be last in, first out. So
Mhm.
they've sort of not been keen to go onto the market. When they've been approached, they've maybe looked at it, but they haven't been rushing. So things like the job boards, like Seek in particular,
Mhm.
have not had the volume of candidates that they used to. What's going to happen over the next month is anyone's guess, but I imagine there will be a little bit of an uptick of lawyers that have gone back to their jobs and decided they want to move. Maybe the law firm who was previously open to flexibility starts saying, "Oh, we want you in the office more and want you to be here 5 days," and returning to pre-COVID situations. I think that will turn a lot of people on off who have embraced flexibility. And
Mhm.
if you're an employer who's starting to go down that route, don't be surprised if you start getting some pushback and even resignations.
That's interesting. Are you seeing a situation where people getting counter offers and where people are
Yeah,
being offered roles and counter offers as well?
there's a lot of that. I've got a theory on counter offers, and that is that you
Yeah.
should be very, very careful not to take them. And I think there's been some research done where if somebody's taken a counter offer and you look up where they are in 6 months, it's very rarely at that firm. So often what happens is um, the money that they get now is just a short term thing because the can gets kicked down the road, and when their next pay review comes up, the employer may be less generous because they've already paid them in advance with that. I think it also there's almost like a mark of Cain. So if you've gone in and resigned, you're a marked man or woman. So you never seem to get the same work or the same trust that there is as before. And often
Mhm.
you'll find that the issues that made a lawyer go looking in the first place just re-emerge, and a bit of extra money is a band-aid. And eventually, after several months, the money hasn't been worth it, and they're out on the market again.
What about progression? You're seeing people progressing upwardly in law firms as well?
Yeah, I found that there's over the years there's been a little bit of almost cachet in the types of firms. So if you're in a top tier firm, you can easily move to another top tier firm. If you're in a mid tier firm, you might be able to move to a top tier firm. But if you're in like a very small firm in the burbs, there's not really much chance you're going to go straight to a top tier firm without maybe a couple of jumps. Because of the candidate shortage, we have noticed that people have been able to move beyond what they might have in previous environments and gone from smaller firms to bigger firms.
Mm-hmm.
And also we've noticed that a lot of people are being offered promotions to move. So if you're stuck somewhere and there are 2 or 3 people ahead of you on the queue and the pecking order, then we found that firms are using promotions as a bit of enticement to get people to move over.
And I mean, from a point of view of the firms and I guess the desire for talent, I mean, are they filling positions internally? Are they using external talent acquisition? I mean, what's the balance of how are they getting sourcing the people?
Look, I think for the last few years, there's been a growth in talent acquisition teams internally. I think the rationale for that was, quite frankly, to save on recruitment fees.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's happening now is the market is so short that the TA people, despite their best efforts, they just don't have the time to do that. And often, if they're also involved in HR, they've got various other duties. So it becomes important that recruiters like you and I, who are only spending our time in the market, that's all we do day in and day out, is speak to people and have coffees and Zoom calls. Our value is there because we are able to tap into particularly the passive candidate pool. Yeah. And now we're going the reverse. A lot of the time we've got exclusive candidates that we represent, and law firms know that. So rather than briefing a recruiter who might be a baby lawyer, a baby recruiter with a couple of years under his or her belt that's just moved here from the UK or Ireland and doesn't have deep contacts, they're coming to the old stayers like us who've got extensive connections and databases and know that we can be able to tap into people who we already know and are good for the job, because the job boards simply aren't producing. If you look at Seek last year, out of their top 20 hardest to fill roles, 10 of them were for lawyers, which is disproportionate because law is probably about 6% of the market, if that. And the other thing is Seek have even confessed themselves that they've had the lowest application rate but the highest number of jobs. So the days of the generalist job board, I think, are gone.
I would tend to agree with that. I think people want relevance. They want to know what. I mean, it's actually community. It's really around the community. What's going on in the community, and how's it actually working?
Yeah. What do you think? And we run a group on LinkedIn called the Australian Legal Community that you'd be familiar with, David. And that's been a great tool for people to be able to swap information.
What are you seeing around salaries?
Definitely upward pressure. We sponsored the Altma survey for New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland in April last year, and it's outdated already. It's moved so quickly. So because there's such a shortage of candidates, it's all supply and demand, isn't it? It's basic economics. So, there are firms that are trying to pay salaries that they were paying 12 months ago for the levels, and they're just being outbid. And then you get the counter offers come in as well. So people are just so busy, they don't want to let down their clients. So they're paying above what they're used to get the talent on board.
And do you think when Australia actually opens up that there might be some relief on the marketplace in terms of people from overseas coming over here? And
yeah, I definitely think so. So people like the lawyers that came from the UK, particularly in transactional areas while they're re-qualifying, and I will make mention of the fact that the new free trade agreements that's come in between the Australia and UK will allow easier transfer of lawyers between the jurisdictions. And obviously through the Trans-Tasman Mutual Recognition Act, there is ability for New Zealand lawyers to come across. But, people aren't moving at the moment because of COVID. But once the borders open up properly, there will hopefully be some talent that comes through that will allow us. But at the same token, we may have a brain drain of lawyers from this end wanting to go to the UK or the US or elsewhere.
So what are the how many years experience are folks in demand for? Is it 3-4 years experience, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, usually between 3 to 6 is the sweet spot. So someone who doesn't need to be trained up but isn't so expensive or desperate to make partnerships. So 3 to 6, I think, is where most of our roles go. And then in-house, we tend to have, their percent tend to be a bit more senior, usually around, or in dollars sense, probably between the 150 and the 200 mark, which could be anywhere from 8 years up.
Okay, brilliant. And what are you seeing starting salaries look like for graduates, for law graduates?
We don't do much in that. We don't have much visibility, but I probably imagine 60 or 70K is probably it for a lot of the small to medium to large firms.
Brilliant. And
I've heard in the US it could be up to close to 200K.
That's incredible.
Yeah. For big Wall Street firms, and you know that you're going to work ridiculous hours, but the money is great.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of it goes in taxes. Those kind of things.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Expensive. New York's
or New York rent.
I was going to say exactly expensive place to live, but I think Sydney's up there now as well.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
So one last sort of question, Jason, on in the I mean, are law firms getting to the point where, I mean, if they're letting people work flexibly, is there an opportunity for people who are paying Sydney rents or Sydney mortgages and things like that to actually relocate to the countryside, do their work from the country and that sort of stuff in a much cheaper way?
Yeah, there has been a bit of that. There are quite a few Sydney people that moved up and down and west, within an hour to 2 hours away from Sydney to take advantage of, Sydney housing prices and stuff. There's been a trend lately where firms want them to come back. So if you're commuting from the Central Coast once a week, that's probably a bit more tolerable. But there's definitely, I don't think we can go back to the pre-COVID level. I think now that the genie's out of the bottle, lawyers are going to embrace the flexibility. I think there probably was a generation of partners that was, I'd say, brought up with the concept of presenteeism, of needing to walk past and see the lawyers actually at their desks to think they're actually working. Now, in an industry that's governed by 6-minute time units, there's accountability everywhere. So I think now people have embraced the fact that you could actually work anywhere. And, for example, if you need to rush off to pick up the kids at 4 o'clock, you can just log in at 6:30 when they're down, whatever it may be. So I think lawyers that now understand, partners in particular understand that, there are some things that are time critical and many things that aren't. And as long as the job is done and the job is done effectively, it probably makes no difference. And what many lawyers have found is they've got themselves an extra hour and a half to 2 hours a day because they're not commuting, and they're probably saving a fortune on dry cleaning and takeout. And at the end of the day, they're being more productive because the time they would have spent on the 389 is now spent doing productive work.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. It's a funny one because the amount of time spending, as you say, spending traveling and money in terms of actually, I mean, the city just swallows up your wallet. I think it's a real good thing that's actually happened there. But no, I guess we'll have to sort of see how it goes. But look, Jason, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate that. And we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, David. Lovely to speak to you as always.